And I don't think I have, there's no additions because this was done before anybody knew the agenda, what the agenda was, right?
Right, I mean, other than it wasn't planned for the presentation, so.
Well, so what I've done, like in the budget presentation, we were expecting to get the budget, which we did. And we didn't get to our police services agreement the other night for a motion, but at the same time, it's relative to the budget because it's all about revenue. And if we don't sign it, we don't get revenue. So that's why I suggested we put it here. So I guess adopt the agenda as amended, that it's an addition of an additional revenue item that wasn't planned to be. 5B. So I'll need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councilor McCoy?
A motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Any other comments? Call the vote, all in favor? That's carried. And I think council, this is one of our most important roles as councillors and council members that we carry out according to MPA and according to our interests in what's best for the community and our revenue expense and our tax rates. And looking forward to an informative presentation tonight. And I'm sure there'll be time for questions. How I'd like to, I don't need you to go through, you need to put your hand up to ask a question, but just ask directly to whoever's presenting at the time, because I don't have the answers for those, so it's looking at me. But you can look at me, but still put up your hand and then talk to whoever you want to talk to. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ethan Gorder to provide the administrative introductory remarks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Welcome, everyone. This is always
Sorry.
This is our most exciting night of the year, and we are excited and glad that everyone can be here. Just to go over just a few quick things before we start. This council has undertaken a number of various strategic planning sessions, as well as they've adopted their strategic plan earlier in the year, which informs a lot of what we're doing. And so this is a reflection from a lot of planning and process, consideration of visions and ideas, and so this is the accumulation of a lot of work that's gone into planning for this. This is a starting point of the process, and Amanda will speak to next steps at the end of the event tonight. But this is just the starting point, and we're going to present to you kind of the base regular budget, as well as go over some potential strategic initiatives and options and ideas that you could consider adding to that starting point budget. But that will be a process that will unfold over the next few months as normal. But again, Amanda will speak to that more at the end. So with that, this is a collaborative process. The budget every year is a collaborative thing. Council sets the level of service direction and a policy vision for the way they want services to be delivered in the town, and then the administrative role is to come up with an estimated budget and a cost for providing those services at that level of service that council gives direction for. So we enjoy this process, the collaborative aspect of it. We're all in this together. We both are teammates in this as we work to find and help council find the right fit for the town for going forward in 2024. So with that, welcome, and I'll turn the time over to Amanda.
Good evening, Mayor Hunter and Council, and welcome to the 2024 Town of Didsbury Budget Meeting. We are excited tonight to present to you the first look at the budget for 2024. Council, you've been provided the slideshow in front of you, so feel free to take notes on those. And at home, we are filming the presentation, and so you can follow along there. The 2024 budget report is found, council, in your binders. And if you are watching us from home, you can download that on our website, on our budget page at didsbury.ca/p/budget. On this slide, you'll see tonight's agenda. And so we've already covered our welcome and introductory remarks. And then we will be introducing the capital budget and the operating budget. And then we will have some service level enhancements for council to consider. And we will end the evening with closing remarks and next steps. And we're going to have a break probably after the capital budget presentation, so you can all stretch your legs. And tonight, here to assist with the presentation is Kelsey Hawkins, our capital asset accountant for the town. And we also have our Director of Community Services, Nicole Asen, and our Director of Engineering and Infrastructure, Craig Fox. They are here to provide insight into their department's budget items. We will allow for questions throughout the presentation at certain times, so please hold your questions for those time periods, just to allow the presentation to flow and so we can get you out of here at a decent time.
Amanda,
Yes.
did you introduce yourself?
And no, I didn't. So I'm Amanda Riley, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the town. Thanks. So, just to give you some insight into where we're at with the budgeting process, we've narrowed it down to 6 steps. And of course, earlier in September and October, we had the public budget survey. Those results are posted on our budget website. For the last couple of months, the senior team has been preparing the budget, and we've been getting it together to be presented. And then here we are tonight at the budget presentation. And then after that, we'll follow up with council deliberations and then finally adoption of the budget. So I'm going to turn it over now to Kelsey Hawkins, and she will introduce the 2024 proposed capital budget.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to introduce the proposed capital budget for 2024. Sorry. So as a reminder, the capital budget is the town's financial plan for the capital expenditures that will take place during the year and the offsetting revenues used to fund those expenditures. So here is a snapshot of the town of Didsbury's 2024 proposed capital budget. It's broken out by project name, budget request, and proposed funding source, and it's categorized by asset type. So each project within the capital budget has a business case. You can find these all in Appendix A. It's in your tab that says Capital Business Cases. And I'll quickly walk you through how to interpret them. So the upper section presents general information, such as the projected timeline, asset type, department. Additionally, it outlines the type of capital project, categorizing it as either a new asset, maintenance, or a renewal project. Within the maroon squares, a detailed description is provided for the project itself, the level of service, justification, and deferral impact. And then at the bottom, you can find the project cost and proposed funding. So this is what it looks like for a project consisting of a single phase. For projects with more than one phase, on the left, you can find details about each phase and the corresponding costs. Future project costs tie into the multi-year capital plan, so you'll notice those costs there as well. And in the case of new projects or assets, a breakdown of operating costs is provided, including expenses related to operation, maintenance, and disposal of the new asset. So next, the directors will walk you through the business cases. At the end, you will also be presented with an operating project that was significant enough to bring forward as a case for your approval. This project is not included in the capital budget because it won't be capitalized. So now I'll pass it off to Craig to start us out on business case proposals.
Good evening, everyone. So to piggyback on the successes of 2023, we're proposing to continue the Mill and Overlay project downtown. This is to take the Mill and Overlay from the CPR main line over to 21st Street, heading to the west. This would go in front of the post office. Okay, and part of the roadworks program that we're presenting is 15th Avenue Mill and Overlay, and this will be a multi-phase project, multi-year project to go all the way up 15th Ave, but we'll start it a block at a time. This one again would be to go for 23rd Street all the way up to 24th Street. So Co-op Road Surface Works project. This has come out of, so the capital plan previously was to do a full underground restoration replacement of Co-op Road. And so piggybacking on sort of the need of the immediate users in the area and to try and move the capital budget in a different way for a few years. Co-op Road is being presented as a surface restoration project. So we'd replace the concrete curbs where they're failing, try and restore the surface drainage as best we can, and then put a cold mix application, some sort of oil mixture similar to what we've done on 23rd Street there, to buy the time until that road comes, until the undergrounds come up for replacement. So this is sort of a stopgap project to Okay, East Reservoir. This one I think everyone is becoming very familiar with. This one is currently in design. Site's been preliminary laid out, and we're currently reviewing that with the engineers. This is additional money to add to the design. The intent for this project, due to recent developments, is to try and minimize construction delays in the delivery of the project. And in order to try and do that, we're anticipating going out to tender for the project early next year to bring on the contractor team to the design team so that we can go to detailed design, determine long lead items while doing the design, look for efficiencies in construction and delivery of the finished product during the design with the contractor, so that when we get into the ability to start phasing and construction, we can just move seamlessly into that process. So the project is looking for a little bit more money to continue that process and expand the scope into getting a contractor on board. So the RV Sandy dump has come sort of part and parcel with the East Reservoir. The current Sandy dump along 19th Street is in deteriorating state, needs rework, sort of independently of doing the reservoir or not. The proximity to the reservoir leads to continuity of project and scalability of our delivery, so we can incorporate the RV Sandy dump into the East Reservoir project delivery, but we would need some money to do that with. The 21st Avenue connector, this is part of the East Reservoir project. In order to allow it to be usable, it needs a water supply pipe, and then it needs to be able to connect to the west side to supply the west side's demand while we address other issues. So this one is to begin the design of that east-west connector. So advanced metering infrastructure, this was originally sort of brought forward in our previous discussions as a remote water meter reading. A water meter reading, I couldn't even say it twice, infrastructure, and this would be to install a tower up at the Butte Reservoir site that is able to read all of the water meters that are in town. The infrastructure at the meter end is already installed. The infrastructure at the top end and the software to do the work is what we're seeking in this project. "23rd Street Sanitary Main. This was a project that we pitched last year. It's an operational encumbrance. This is one that we have to flush routinely. We find concrete in it. We know it's collapsing and failing. And so we continue to work on that piece of pipe to make sure that it stays open. And we're looking forward to moving it forward if at all possible this year. Okay, the streetlight improvement program. This is a small amount of money to begin the design phase of correcting some of the gaps we have along our main street and working north on the multi-year capital plan. But this one would give us some ability to go forward, get the design in place, and have an understanding of the construction cost going into 24 or 25. Valorosa Link. This would be a new pathway that would extend from an existing pathway in Memorial Park around the baseball diamonds down into the back of a new subdivision, Valorosa Park subdivision. There's an existing right-of-way in the area that allows for the path to be put in. There's a sanitary main that runs down the hill. So we have land and the environmental reserve on both sides, but there's a heavily used dirt path there that's very steep and not maintainable. And in the winter time and when it's raining, it becomes probably pretty challenging for those who rely on it. So this would get us into the design phase, determine if there's any other issues that we need to address before getting into construction.
So we'll pause it there, and if there are any questions for Craig this part, then we can take those now.
Councillor Baswick.
Through the chair, thank you. I'm looking at a lot of these things, the overlays, the service work and that kind of thing. It looks like they're all grant covered, or potentially grant covered, which is a bonus for us if we don't have to pay out of our financial bank. Is that a fact that a lot of these are covered by MSI grants or typical grants? But from what you say here, it looks like some of them are, or most of them are, which would be a good thing.
Yeah, so I'll take that question. So typically, what we do for our roadworks is we fund them from our grants, either the MSI, which is becoming LGFF, or this, in the case of the mill and overlay projects this year, we have slotted those to be covered from our CCDF grant. And then anything that's equipment that we already, or a facility that we already have, at the end of the day, those are council decisions. So we're just making recommendations and we can tweak those if needed.
Okay, so lack of a better term, I guess we could ignore the funding for these from us because the grants, these are provincial grants, I assume, that are gonna cover those costs, which is a good thing because it's not taking out of our budget, right? So these is extra dollars for other more meaningful things, correct?
Essentially, yes, it's leaving us our reserve accounts for something else.
Thank you.
Councilor McCoy?
You've got to be.
Yeah, Councilor McCoy, take your question. Moving on, doesn't have capacity at the moment to go after undergrounds in that segment of our town. We don't experience any issues there operationally. We have a surface failure sort of thing, like we have a rough road, we have some aged concrete, but we haven't had a water dig on that segment of our network for a very long time. So what we do with the mill and overlay, they're kind of a 9 to 10 years sort of a lifespan on a mill and overlay, so it buys you that sort of time. It's that 10 years, no, does it?
Assuming that is in addition to the 75,000 that was set aside in 2020, is that correct?
It's in addition to the money set aside previously. The number I don't think is, I think it's 175 we had originally allowed for.
175?
Yeah, and that was 2020 when we were still doing design and things. So this is, to sort of top up our design capacity so that we can get to that delivery point.
So this design and tender is 300,000 for that particular item.
Yeah, to bring a reservoir like this up to issued for construction stage is basically where we would be at the end of this so then that's the cost of getting there.
This project, as well as the 21st Avenue Connector project, are tied together, are they not?
One relies on the other, yeah.
Yeah, otherwise we have the same fire suppression problem on the west side as what we had on the east side, correct?
We need in essence, we wouldn't be realizing the true value of the system.
So between the two of them, we're looking at $550,000 for design and tender.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please.
Can you, I know you told us this before, but I'm going to ask again, go Co-op Road and go into a mill and overlay. And so first of all, it's not on our multi-year plan anymore. So does that mean you expect it to last like 5 or... Explain first why we don't have to do the deeds again, like we had originally planned in 1 year, and then how long is the lifespan of the mill and overlay? How many times is it better to do it before we get right under it?
Thank you for the question. So I think there's 3 in there. So the deep utilities on Co-op Road came out of the master plan. And so it was, previously we were using the infrastructure master plans to lay out our multi-year capital plan. We've deviated from that slightly because of various reasons. And Co-op Road, when we took a deeper look at it in preparing for how do we not, or what are we looking at, or what's the deferral impact of not doing the deep utilities on Co-op? We went in, again, did our historical records check for water breaks, things like that. We've had a couple, we've fixed a couple. We haven't had any very recently. And then we went and had the camera, the underground sanitary lines cameraed, and that inspection report came back with some notable concerns, but nothing of significance to drive us to come back and say, yeah, we made a mistake, we want to do the deeps. So we're comfortable with a 10-year go forward on the deep utilities on Co-op Road. it pushes it off the capital plan, or it pushes it into the late stages. I think it was in 28 or 29, sort of like when we were looking long-term planning. So it's still there for a full replacement. It's just been moved down the road, and we're comfortable with that because of the condition that we see underground with the camera inspection. So the mill and overlay, as far as it's not exactly the type of project that we would deliver there. We would mill it. We would probably add new asphalt to it and oil to it, and then relay that product down and pack it in. So it's a bit of a blend, but yeah, it's for simple purposes. Yeah, it's a mill and overlay, but yeah, it's and then those will last 10 years, you know. So that underground time frame with the surface time frame, we could find ourselves in a properly timed project a little bit down the road.
And then I mean, what is gonna happen when all the mill and overlay does happen? It looks nice and presents well, and people like it, and it does the job of a nice street that's gonna last 10 years. So how would that compare in, I know appearance might sound like a stupid question, but how would that present to the public that it was a $125,000 job, or $225,000, we're all happy with getting our roads upgraded and smoothed out and all that, what do you call it, alligator or something?
Mm-hmm.
So how would it present, I guess?
So like in 10 years, when it fails, how will it look when it fails? Is that?
No,
Oh,
during those 10 years.
well, so 10 years, I'm not.
Good at all.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying we'd be in 10 years where we're at today. So in 10 years is when you'd really start looking at, we need to do some serious maintenance to this, or you might have a spot where it has softened and alligatored, because you'll get those localized issues. But one would expect that if you're about to do the deeps in a couple of years and you've got a few spots that aren't that great, again, you're kind of at that properly timed project again. So your surface isn't looking awesome, and you have to go into the deep utilities to fix them. So it would last. It would definitely be better than it is today, and in 10 years it'll definitely be better than it is today. It won't be like it will be after we fix it in 10 years. So it'll be somewhere in between. But yeah, it's the purpose I guess I'm trying to get at is you do the fix, it lasts for a while. Maybe you got to repaint, maybe you got to touch up a spot here or there, but it should still be in reasonable shape. So if we get to in 10 years. Do another video inspection and everything looks like it didn't get much worse than it did 10 today. Maybe the decision then will be to just put some tar on top and keep trucking. Maybe we'll be in hovercraft.
So similar then to what we did on 23rd Street North, or is it the same?
It would be it's hard to equate the two, but it's not going to be asphalt like we talk about, like on a high usage commercial thoroughfare. It would be 2 to 3 inches of recycled asphalt, I guess would be a way to frame it. Councillor Windsor? Sure.
So, Craig, in the introduction, we were indicated that on these sheets, we were going to see what type of capital project it is. And on these, I don't necessarily see that line is included in the projects. Am I missing something here?
It's in your binder, in the capital pieces. Are you looking at the slides?
Okay, so I should be looking at the slides is what you're telling me.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
it's in the.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, I know there's that, I'm looking at the slides. The advanced metering infrastructure systems, I'm not sure that I completely understand what that is, and if you could explain that so that the residents know as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for the question. So this one, so many years ago, the town decided to put water meters in, which was a fantastic move. And so what has happened over time, keeping up with technology, we now have with our device that we have in the truck, we communicate through a radio frequencies with the meters, and we collect that data, and we move around in a vehicle to do that. And then if we have issues with the collection of the data, we have to go back out and go out and collect them and things like that. So that's our current base of service, and it takes a person approximately 5 days to do that work. And that's just the collection of the data, and then we have administrative support. What this advanced metering system allows for, and the infrastructure that we're asking for, it will be a 120-foot tower up at the Butte site. On top of it, it'll have a technology device that can read the meters around the whole town every hour. And that information is available to the owner of the meter. So the public will be able to have access to their meters. They'll be able to tell if they've got a high flow alarm while they're sitting on a beach in Mexico. They can call Public Works up and we can go check for water leaks, phone a friend, that kind of thing. It'll also be able to tell us if there's backflow conditions. So if there's pressure fluctuations in the water main, and that leads my department to think a lot of different things. So the amount of information that it will be able to collect and put into a system that we can then query will give us a lot more information on how the system is behaving, and we'd be able to use that to our advantage for operational reasons. So the benefits to the end user are great. Benefits to operations are fantastic. It'll be a beautiful Christmas tree ornament. But yeah, that's sort of like in the nutshell. That's kind of what it's supposed to do for us. You're welcome. I don't know who had their hands up first. Council Engler?
So will that help with the billing? Will our billing department here be able to pull that information so that the truck doesn't have to drive around and do the meter reading?
So the ability to collect the information will eliminate the necessity to drive around. We'll still be out there doing our stuff, but yeah, we won't be dedicated running around reading all of the meters in town. There's always a couple that we have to go and manually read and things like that, and there's nuances. But yeah, the intent of the advanced metering system is an efficiency improvement for the department, as well as a technological advancement that is keeping track with industry standard as well. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Councillor McCoy?
About the same thing, I'm just curious, is it going at the Butte water reservoir because of the height of the Butte? Because it's using Wi-Fi or something to do its job?
So it runs on a radio frequency. And yeah, so we had the path study is what they call that when they're looking for where's the best spot. Yeah, it has got to do with the height and then the unique geographical of our town. Yeah, so yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Windsor?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go one more on that. And so, currently, somebody drives around in a truck and it picks up meter readings. And then if there are problems with a particular meter or something like that, they have to go back to that particular meter. Is this going to be able to pick out an individual meter so that you can look at individual meters around town? Or is that not, are they still gonna have to send the truck back out to check on discrepancies?
So I think we're getting a little bit deeper into maybe the operational side of it that I don't know if I'm advanced enough to know the answer to your question. I would anticipate no matter what, there's still going to be site visits ultimately, and it won't eliminate them. I'm sure it comes with a number of diagnostic tools. We can push firmware upgrades to the meter. If there's two-way communication, so it uploads to us and we download to it, so we can do. I'm sure there's diagnostic tools, but the advancement of them, I'm not exactly positive. Are we good?
I have to ask about the Rosa Link pathway. And, because that is a steep hill. When you look at it, is there gonna be more stairs than halfway, but it is the maintenance of it. And I mean, it's a great idea, and I think if there's any pathway that's priority town, in my opinion, it would be that one, because there's long overdue. But when we get into the design phase, what, I guess these consultants that do this would have lots of background or experience with steep hills like that, and then you go on to the maintenance of, if there are a lot of stairs, that's a lot of extra work to keep those stairs clean. And I know it's a, it's a 6 1 half does the other, has to be done, but the question in there is, how much, who'll be working with them, number one, is the, like, is there gonna be engagement about that, or is what department will work with that? And how will the final, pathway stair combination be settled on? And maybe no one knows that answer, but
I think it's a great question. We might be just a little bit ahead of the cart there on that one. There's no design there yet. That's what we're looking for the money to do, so what it would be is there's all sorts of accessibility criteria that we'd have to adhere to. So I think a combination of stairs and switchbacks would be reasonable to assume. Now, how that combination gets done, because you can do switchbacks with the stairs going down the middle, so that every once in a while you get a little flat spot and a little stair and a little flat spot, and the switchback goes in between. The space for the right-of-way, the cost of the infrastructure over top of a pipeline will be a consideration. Whether or not maybe we just need to take a different piece of land that's currently an environmental reserve, do all the land framework changing that would be required to turn it into a municipal reserve. Maybe we can change the direction of it, stretch it out, make it wiggle around. But that's kind of what we're looking for, is to see, well, honestly, this is the check to see if you guys are interested in moving forward with that. If so, we'll come up with some concepts, we can bring them back, and we can chat about that.
And I know it's the operating side, but, and I'm very supportive of it, but I think 3,000 is low for future budget. Just because it's gonna be a big job, like, you gotta shovel it. Unless someone comes up with some magical machine that takes snow off stairs for the winter, or maybe we dispose it for the winter, I don't know.
And honestly, that's where my head's going.
I
Yeah.
know it's not to do with capital, but it's just a thought for future councils. That's good impact, and it's very worthy. Thank you. And this, it was a design phase question, I thought, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Got to consider these things. All right, I think I'm going to step aside
Thank you.
and allow Nicole, Asa, come on.
Just a reminder too, please, when you have questions, to speak directly into your microphone, just so you get the best volume on our YouTube channel. Thank you.
And then, I had one more.
Oh,
Because the pictures are different on the RV Sandy, like the little pictures, it's a different concept, and I'm thinking you'll be leaning towards the lower concept, because you want that paper use, and is that, would that be fair to assume?
I'm sorry,
Presume?
in my shuffling, I missed the question.
Oh, just the two pictures are quite different.
Oh,
right? So
yes.
One's that pay station, and then one's just whatever it is, with some lids.
Yeah, again, because yes, thank you. That's a good point, and I forgot to mention that. Because we are asking for design money, part of, again, come back to you with the design for consideration once we have some understanding, but going into that design, it'd be good to know too if council is interested in doing a pay for fee user pay system. So it's very common now to have mechanical valves on the inlet. So you throw a $5 bill in there, it opens up for 20 minutes, and away you go. So that is an option to be considered at the time. Councillor Williams?
I got a question regarding the streetlight improvement program.
Yes, sir.
Would that have any impact on the banners that we have, like veteran banners, town banners, or grad banners?
Provide us more lights to put them up on. Yes, sir. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
I won't take nearly as long as Craig. I have 3 projects to present to you this afternoon from the Community Services Department. The first one is a maintenance project, and it is requesting the replacement of the flooring in the train station in the Eldon Foot Hall. So that's the main hall that we rent out to different users throughout the week and on weekends. So if you've been in there recently, you can see that the floor has been failing for some time. I would say it was installed somewhere in the early to mid 90s is kind of our best guess with it. I think it's original to when the Lions did some renovations on that facility, and it's we're seeing a lot of chipping and cracking, as well as the top finish on the floor is worn off, and so it's just never looks clean, even though it's cleaned very, very regularly. So what we are proposing is flooring similar to those that we did this year in the lobbies of the Memorial Complex, so the front lobby as well as the pool lobby. It's a nice slip-resistant durable flooring system that's kind of sprayed in, and so it can go right over top of the existing flooring, so we wouldn't see any removal being required of that floor. And I think that, you know, the benefits to this are a much better aesthetic looking improvement for our renters and users of that facility. So this funding for this project is estimated at $40,000 to be funded through both reserve as well as some operating budget funds. My second project is a renewal project. So over the past several years, we've been seeing replacement of our playgrounds within Didsbury. And so this playground that we're proposing for next year replacement is the Southridge Playground. They're all about the same age, and they're all about the same shape. So the reason that this one is being proposed by administration is because when we look at the ones that we've replaced, we've done West Heights, we've done obviously the Jets Park, we've done some replacements down at the campground, and when we look at the layout of the community, Southridge is kind of the neighborhood that hasn't seen that renewal yet. And so Southridge and Eric's Park both serve the residents of Southridge and kind of those outlying areas around there. But I think that, you know, either or would be fine, but I think, you know, one of those 2 playgrounds is what should be considered, and Southbridge is the one that we've chosen. So this project would come from the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Reserve. It's valued at about $65,000. That would see our staff doing the installation of it being supervised by a licensed playground inspector. So he kind of oversees the install, but by us doing the work ourselves, it saves a lot of money. So we'd be looking at some new curbing on the playground, the addition of some new kind of ground cover, as well as the equipment itself. And you don't see any equipment that's being proposed here, because I think that when we did the Jets playground, it was really great to engage with the community. So I'd love to have the residents that would be using the area that the playground is in be able to have some contribution into what that design looks like. So that is my second project. And my last one is another renewal, and it's a replacement of our John Deere Z-Class mower. So on the multi-year capital plan, this in 24 it was calling for the replacement of our Toro mower, which is the big one with the wings on it. But that equipment's operating really well. It's well maintained, and so we're not seeing any trouble, whereas this one we have been running into a lot of repair costs, especially this past year. were upwards of about $4,000 in repair costs. And when you look at the value of a new machine, it at some point stops being worth it to keep investing in repairs. So we've kind of swapped them on the multi-year capital plan, brought this one ahead, and are looking to see replacement of it. So, I mean, obviously this is critical equipment for our parks crew to be able to take care of the community and all the mowing that we do. And so the value of this is $30,000, which would also come from the vehicle and equipment replacement reserve. And we wouldn't necessarily buy the same piece of equipment. We would do some quoting and kind of go to market for that if this project were approved. Do you have any questions? Councillor Baswick?
Thank you, Nicole. I just wondering, you did mention that the Toro machine was a very viable and reliable piece of equipment. Would the plan be to replace this JD with Toro equipment?
No, it wouldn't. So the Toro's a large piece of equipment, and really it has kind of specialized purposes. I mean, it can mow, but it can't get into little spaces really well because it's got two big wings that fold down on the side of it. So this is kind of a regular, it's a larger deck, zero-turn mower is what we really want to have replaced, whereas the Toro is, we only really need one. So, and the value of them is very expensive relative to one of these zero-turn mowers that we want to be able to replace. So, hope that answers that for you.
That's okay.
What can I ask about the multi-year capital plan? Just that, like, a lot of Craig's projects have that design phase, and I'm wondering, like, with the support system being on the 2025 multi-year capital plan, maybe are we going to talk about that later, Amanda, the multi-year capital plan? So I don't want to.
No, it's not planned for.
Because I'm just wondering then, do these projects need a design phase, or like the multi-court system? So if it's going to be built, or projected, it's proposed for 2025 in this plan. So do they need a design phase, and is that, first of all, I guess that's the question, and then if they do, then
No.
it should be designed this year.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Okay.
Yeah, they're kind of just a package that you purchase, and so as long as we have the right size land that's kind of the right quality of dirt, they're able to build those. So it's a system that they put in. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's because I had no other questions about the other party presentation, so I just noticed that one.
Well, thanks for that one.
Thanks.
Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Nicole. With regard to the train station flooring, I appreciate the disrepair that the floor is in.
Mhm.
I think there's other areas of that building that are also in the need of some, maybe I should say, facelift. And I wonder if those are on the drawing board, or if we're looking at that,
Yeah.
or if that's put off for another year, or where we are.
So those are normally handled within our regular operational repair and maintenance budget. So we do the painting ourselves. We'll kind of go in and do that kind of touch-ups that need to be done. Our plan would be that we would see the floors go in, and then we would go in and paint the interior of the building as well. Do you have other?
No, that was,
Yeah.
mainly I was thinking
Yeah.
of the walls. And
Yeah, our staff takes care of those.
Okay.
Our facility maintenance staff take care of those types of things for us, because we never really outsource that, and it's handled within our budgets, because really we're just paying for supplies because the staff's already working for us. Yep. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So I am back here to speak about 3 items as well. for both the fire department and our IT department. So the first item is for the purchase of a 3/4 ton truck to replace the 2011 Unit 310 command truck at the fire station and outfit it with a storage unit for equipment, light, sirens, and decals. As part of this project, the current vehicle will then be repurposed to replace the 381 support vehicle, which requires fitting it with a slip-in tank and pump unit and additional traffic control and lighting. The old 381, which is 20 years plus old, would then be disposed of. So a command vehicle provides initial response prior to the arrival of other resources, and a support vehicle serves as an additional wildland fire resource. These replacements have been planned for in the long-term fire vehicle plan and have already been postponed by a couple of years. We're bringing these forward as vehicles age, they tend to require more maintenance costs and, of course, have a higher chance of failure. So the cost of this project would be $150,000, with half of it to be funded from our partners at Mountain View County, and the other half would be funded from the town's large capital equipment reserve. The next item that I'm bringing is also a fire department asset, and it would be for the purchase of a second hydraulic ram for the use by the fire department. This item has been scheduled on their multi-year small equipment plan. In the past, just to note this, we hadn't included those items on the town's multi-year capital plan, so we've corrected that and taken any capital assets out of there and slotted them into your multi-year capital plan. An hydraulic ram is a vehicle extrication tool, and it essentially, if there's a car accident, you're able to get a person out of the vehicle by opening it up. And this purchase of the second one would allow for redundancy. So right now we do have one. We're asking for a second one in case of, you might have a situation where you need to use two in one situation, or there are times where there's multiple calls at the same time. And so just to have that additional resource. And so the cost of this is estimated to be $16,000, with half of it funded from our partners at Mountain View County, and the remaining half would be from the operating budget. And finally, I'm here to present the purchase of a new virtual host server for the organization. These assets, well, a server hosts the data for the town. So it's a critical asset to the day-to-day functioning of the organization. Renewal of this equipment is scheduled every 5 years because these are, that's the warranty period for them. And while we do have backup server, we're looking to replace this one because we are coming up on the 5 years. So the projected cost of this is $18,000, and it would be fully funded by the operating budget. And this amount is currently in the operating budget. So those are my items this evening. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor McCoy?
Probably a dumb question, but why wouldn't it be in capital?
The server?
Yeah.
It is in capital, however, we're just saying take money from the operating budget to pay for it. Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem. Any other questions? Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Amanda. So, we see a lot of these things, and including some of these that are being funded by the operating budget. So are they already included in the operating budget that will be presented later?
So in this case, these two items are yes in the operating budget. However, the other items that are scheduled for funding by operations are not. So just these two items are in there at this point.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's not totally true. The train station flooring, Nicole reminded me.
So we have to go back and mark on each one, which is in the
Well,
budget, which is not, or?
We can remind you later as well.
Okay, thank you.
There's a slide with that.
Okay.
So was that virtual host server, have they historically been on our multi-years? I didn't memorize the last one.
No.
No.
No, this is where we're trying to get better at that capital plan. So they are now scheduled on there for every 5 years. But no, it was not on there previously.
So if you're doing that, then are we going to start building reserve for those kinds of things?
Yes, that would be ideal.
I agree. And the EWRAM, sorry, is that okay if I just ask them?
Yes.
I did see your hand. But I'm not good at the questions, so. ask
Go ahead.
The EWRAM, you say, so right now they only have one?
Correct.
Always only had one?
Yes.
And now they want two just because one might fail. Is that?
Well,
Or
in case, not just because it might fail, but so they have an additional resource if they need to at the same time. And so this was,
Has that happened before? I'm just thinking of mutual aid and stuff.
Yeah.
They would have another one.
they would. Recently, there was a collision on Highway 22A, I mean. There was two collisions at the same time, and I know they could have used them both. So then the second one, they had to wait for mutual aid to attend. So it does happen. So, and these are, in the fire department budget, there's a significant amount for the small equipment plan. So this has been part of the 5-year small equipment plan that is part of our ICC agreement.
And they're gonna start being on multi-year then?
Yeah, so the items from that plan that are capital in nature, we're pulling out, and it'll still exist on that
Yeah.
multi-year plan, but we'll also include it on our multi-year capital plan.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councillor McCoy?
The operating cost for the hydraulic ram, I'm assuming that's the total estimated operating cost for the year, and it would be offset by 50% of revenue that would come from our partner, Mountain Valley.
Correct. So we're just showing the operating estimate. The battery replacement wouldn't have to occur every year.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Baswick?
Thank you, from my personal point of view, I think this RAM kind of augments the Jaws Life, which they have already. So it's another tool that, and I, from my perspective, I fully support anything that works with our fire department to make them efficient, safe, and work in our best interests. So these things are very easy for me to agree with.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No? Okay, I will turn this back over to Craig, who will round out the capital asset section.
Oh, thank you. I missed you guys. Yes, sir. All right. Well, this is my favorite part of the program. We get to talk about equipment. So, the first one that the department is looking for, and this is an improvement to our capacity to deliver a service that is used throughout the town. So, just background on this one is we've got a lot of neighborhoods that have enormously beautiful trees. Those trees create challenges for my department and when we're trying to do the work on the back alleys. For the last couple of years, we went on an information campaign and then maybe a little bit of door knocking campaign to see if we could get some more room to work. With very little success, and that's so we're looking. I guess this is a capacity improvement to allow us to get into the back alleys that we can't otherwise get to. So this piece of equipment goes on the Bobcat instead of using the grader. It's a landscaping rake. It's got a big rotary thing inside with some teeth on it, and it will kick up and disturb the soil. And we can go back and forth, and it creates a nice new travel surface, gets rid of all the ruts and bumps and things that the grader does also, but in places where we can't get the grader. So a secondary use for this, so that's the primary reason for the department asking for it. This is also very handy for any kind of landscaping work. So anytime we're roughing out soils anywhere or running over gopher piles or things like that, this is the piece of equipment that we would deploy in those kind of surfaces. So department normally rents these every year from various places, but because it's a tool that we're using every year, sometimes it's just better to have those tools at our disposal for more uses, for longer periods of time, for less cost. That's my pitch for the Hardy rake.
That's it?
That's it. I have a little song and dance too. So the end dump trailer. So this is an extension of the tracked Bobcat that we procured last year. One of the things that we do know about these units is they're all hydraulically motor driven. Driving them from point A to point B, especially the tracked units, can be very costly from an operations perspective. The pumps are difficult to get. They're very expensive to replace. There's 4 of them. So we can reduce the overall maintenance costs and the operating costs on our tracked skid steer predominantly with this piece of equipment. The second application is intended to produce is we also use our front end loader as a material supply delivery vehicle. It's a very heavy piece of equipment. It goes places I'd rather not see it go. Reason being is because it's efficient and easy and all them sort of things. So I am looking for the department to try and change the mode of transportation. Most of these projects don't require a dump truck. So it's that middle ground part. But I see a synergy between a Bobcat and a medium pile size of dirt. And so that's where those two tasks, I guess, that the department provides this tool would help that be done. Does anybody have, I'll wait for that. The last piece of equipment that the department has put forward for the year is a snow wing. So this would be an additional piece of equipment that would attach to our existing grader. It allows the mow board to be extended, and this would reduce the number of trips that we have to make on our priority ones predominantly. and in residential areas would also allow us to do them a lot more efficiently. So instead of taking 4 runs to get down a road, we do 3. But where this one would really shine is more on our priority ones. So the 4-lane roads out in front, downtown, everywhere, 15th Avenue. And then snow wings are almost essential for gravel road, rural road maintenance. So our annex roads, current level of service is we blade to the side, and that's all we can do. We can extend the moldboard out to kick it out a little bit further, but that's the extent. So the wing allows us to get into the ditch and push that windrow that ends up on the side of the ditch off the hill, provides the driver that visual understanding that there's grass and a roll instead of a bump. So instead of providing bumpers, we're letting the users know where the road ends. So that's what the snow wing really shines on, is those annex roads, and then the efficiency in town for snow removal. So those are the 3 pieces of equipment. And then we'll finish it up with the sanitary lagoon. This is again another project that council's become very familiar with over the past couple of years. We've been treating the cells with bacteria to help digestion. And this fall we completed, so we've been doing the bathymetric surveys. 3 times now, and this last one we did a more extensive survey. It's come back with, again, positive results from the chemical addition, but working with Alberta Environment, we know that regardless of how much we add to it, we still have to get rid of the sludge. So this is the first phase of a multi-year project. So every couple of years we would tackle a couple of cells to get the system back into full operating capacity. And we can do that over a number of years. But this is to get the first 2 primary cells back to full capacity.
This is the same 50 that was presented at the workshop
Yes.
in the budget?
In the multi-year? Yes.
I know. I'm just asking Craig, he wasn't here.
All right, I'm going to take any questions.
So that
Sure.
our virtual people, I don't know if they're virtual people, but they listen virtually. So the question was, is this the $250,000 that's included?
I'm just thinking about communities that have back alleys and actually use them for garbage disposal rather than putting them out front. And the trees, what EPCOR will do to a tree if it's touching their line, at some point, are people not responsible for cutting back the trees to allow a grader to go in the back alley?
Maybe. I can speak to what my department has done historically. Is we've done door knocking, we've left door knockers, we've had conversations, we've made requests, we've seen some compliance, but some of these trees been around longer than I have, and it's kind of hard to really. And on the backhand of that is, we don't have the financial resources to do anything about it. We could, but it would just anger 4 people. And it would be the 4 people that we could afford to go and cut the trees out of. And because we couldn't, it's not like we could say we're going to do a sweeping program through all the neighborhoods and here's your 30 days notice and all that sort of stuff. And then we've got the ability to go in there and do that work with money. It's kind of I like this approach better. Sorry, Councillor Windsor.
Thank you, Craig. So first of all, I don't have a sheet for the sanitary, or for the lagoon.
cases.
It's special outbreak cases, oh, okay.
Hiding it on you.
Hiding it, thank you very much for hiding it on me.
Sorry.
The other three are identified as being from operating budget. Are they in the current budget or not?
So to answer that question, no, none of these are in the current budget, including the lagoon project. We have kept it out. If you want to go forward with that project, we'll put it in. You'll see a big increase to the expenses when we put it in, and we'll see a big increase to the revenues because it's an operating project. So we just wanted to show you that that will be a significant increase to those, to your revenues and your expenses. So in your binder is the baseline budget. That's why we've done that approach.
You're gonna summarize all the items that are in the operating budget and that aren't,
Right.
we can note. I'm interested in these proposed, and again, the 2024 multi-year capital plan, it's not here, and again, I didn't memorize it, so, and I'm not expecting this tonight, but I'd like, or you could try to answer this, or you can answer maybe, but are all these projects that are being proposed and presented currently in the 2024 line? Were we to look at our 2024 to 2028 cap multi-year plan?
No, they're not.
Okay.
So these equipment additions are new to the plan, but we could go through it. But there's actually several items that are new. So the server is new. That was an oversight, I guess, when we presented the plan previously. Let's see.
I don't, like, we don't have to answer that tonight, Amanda, but I think I'd like that list come back that wasn't in the 2024 plan that we currently have, and then to me, it kind of helps with capital planning and what I might favor or not, if it was just all of a sudden added in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't take away their business case and the presentation of it, but, and I understand the multi-year plan is a working document, but when new things are added, I'd like to have that list. And we can make some motions tonight out of that, I guess, just for future information.
Yeah.
I don't expect to either list them all right now off memory.
Okay.
Were there any other questions from anybody about Amanda's presentation that she just did? Or Craig's, I'm sorry. It's Craig right there. Yeah. No other questions? Well, and I won't
Thank
call you
you.
back up if I think of one.
You can.
Okay.
Okay. Oh. Okay, so I'll give you a quick overview of the projects presented to you. So approximately half of the projects are new assets or projects, while 21% are capital maintenance projects and 32% involve asset renewals. In terms of departmental distribution, 16% are categorized under corporate services, 68% under engineering and infrastructure, and the remaining 16% under community services. And there are various asset types. Many are slotted under infrastructure, but they include equipment, land improvements, trails and pathways, vehicles, roads, facilities, underground utilities, and buildings. Next, we've got our proposed funding sources. So 9 of our projects are proposed for funding or partial funding, from the following reserves. The estimated balances at the end of next year are contingent upon approval of these projects and approval of the allocations to these reserves by council. Next, we've got our estimated grant balances. So you will notice that there's no estimated MSI allocation for 2024. This is because the MSI capital funding is being replaced with the local government fiscal framework, the LGFF, beginning in 2024. And while formal allocations have not been finalized for the LGFF, it is expected that Didsbury will receive the same amount as the 2023 MSI capital allocation of $540,506. But the town will continue to fund projects with the MSI capital until the balance is depleted. Here's some other funding or other proposed funding sources. So there's one design project proposed to be funded by developer levies and 2 projects that would require third-party approval from the county and would be funded 50% by the county. There's 7 projects that are proposed to be funding from the operating budget. So please note that only the pink highlighted projects are included in the initial version of this draft operating budget. So this is the end of the capital budget overview. We can answer any final questions if you have, and then I think we're taking a break. Councillor McCoy?
Just one, the East Reservoir, how are you going to charge to developers when it's also fulfilling the needs of all of the east part of Pittsburgh?
Thank you for that question. So I believe that we'll be using offsite levies to fund part of it, but those are monies paid by developers already for infrastructure upgrades. So offsite levies are very specific about what they can fund. This project would qualify under that purpose because a portion of the reservoir, whether it be a pump or some portion of the storage capacity, is affiliated with the developers who have paid the offsite levies to date. And so we're basically supplying them with water and upgrading the system using the money that they provided for that.
And are those dollars in reserve somewhere?
Yes, anytime we bring in $1 of offsite levies, we are required to put it into a reserve account, and so they are there.
Okay, so that 115, I can't remember exactly what it was, but all of that will be covered by, all of that will be covered by the offsite levies that you already have?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So would that be reflected on this page then, or should it be, or?
Yeah, it is. So under the developer
What page are you
levies,
on? So, yeah, what page are we gonna be looking at for that?
well, this is in the proposed funding sources.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I've just got a different page here. Sorry,
That's okay.
yeah.
Are there any other questions about this portion of the agenda? Councilor Windsor?
Thank you, Amanda. So just for clarification, under the operating budget on that sheet up there, the 2 that are identified with highlights are the ones that are currently included in the proposed operating budget. The remainders of those are not.
Those 2 are included in the transfer to capital line. There is some money for the train station flooring in the repairs and maintenance line that we would pull out and put it into the capital line instead, if you go ahead with that project. Yes.
So there's 3 then.
It's only part of the train station flooring though. So about 15,000 would be reallocated from the R&M line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does everybody have that page? Because I don't have that page.
This is in the slide.
Yeah,
and you don't have.
Well, I know, but we were told earlier to look at our book, so I'm not looking at the slides. So it's not in my book, is what I'm saying.
We added this
I
today.
write my notes on my
So no, it's not
sheets.
in the report.
I don't have to write the notes on my. Yeah, but I write them on the pages. That's why I was looking. Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
So if there's nothing else, we are going to take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 5:35 to start the operating session. That's 13 minutes, if everybody's good with that.
We're ready to go.
Okay, welcome back. So, you will now get to listen to me for for the next hour or so. Okay.
That was cheering.
Was that a drum roll?
Yeah.
Yours is better than mine.
Okay. So, welcome to the 2024 proposed operating budget presentation. I am going to take you through a first look at the Town of Didsbury's operating budget for 2024. As you know, Council uses the budget to set priorities for any given year by setting aside money for your desired level of service. The first look at the budget, which is in your package, represents a status quo, bare bones budget. The senior team has looked at what amounts are required to continue operating at the same level or similar to 2023. Administration has accounted for known, contracted, and other estimated inflationary increases for things like utilities and insurance and policing costs. At the end of this section, Council will be presented with a list of service level enhancement options that will impact the budget that is before you today. Okay, two different systems here. So, the operating budget represents the day-to-day costs of town operations and provides its programs and services. It is made up of revenue or funding sources and expenses or costs of providing the services. Major sources of funding include utility user charges, government grants, user fees, franchise fees, licenses, and permits. Before considering the municipal tax levy, we have budgeted for revenue of $7.6 million, which is just a slight increase from 2023 of $28,000. I will go through these changes in greater detail further in my presentation. On this slide, it represents the expenses or costs outlined in the first look at the budget. Significant costs include salaries and wages, contracted and professional services, the cost of water, municipal policing costs, long-term debt servicing payments, and transfers to reserves. The expenses, which total $12,748,915, is a 0.7% increase over the prior year. And again, I will be walking you through the significant changes later in my presentation. So as you know, we take the total revenues and subtract the total expenses to determine the municipal tax levy required. In this version of the budget, we are looking at a municipal tax levy required of $5,180,146, which is $59,190 or 1.2% greater than 2023. Considering the impacts of inflation on utilities and insurance and other services, you will note that we have also had some decreases in order to achieve this little of an increase. Looking at the municipal tax levy line in more depth, we have received 2024's assessment from the town's assessor. And we are projected to have a $36 million increase in taxable assessment, or 5.3%. Of that $36 million, approximately $27 million is from market changes, so meaning the value of your property. And $9 million is from assessment growth, which would be development of new properties or renovation of properties or looking at the sales that have occurred, and if those have had renovations that weren't noted before, that would also be considered in the assessment growth. Out of that 36 million, 33.5 million of the increase relates to residential properties and the remainder non-residential. If we look only at the assessment growth, we can expect about, and assuming that the tax rates remain the same, we can expect about $74,000 of assessment growth revenue. And based on the tax levy required, that $59,000, we would have a decrease of about $14,000 compared to last year. So I'm going to walk you through some of the significant changes in the budget year over year, starting with the revenues. One of the largest sources of revenue besides taxes is utility user charges. Here we're seeing about a 3% increase overall, and which varies between water, wastewater, and solid waste. The utility departments are self-sufficient, meaning they do not rely on tax revenue. The total costs of water, wastewater, and solid waste departments are covered by monthly utility charges paid by our customers. On November 28th, Council passed the first reading of the 2024 utility charges bylaw. Based on the changes outlined in that document, the average residential user will see an increase of $4.34 per month. And that is assuming consumption of 12 cubic meters per month. Some of the variances in these departments include an increase to the cost of water, which we purchase from the Mountain View Regional Water Services Commission. The rates will be going from $1.97 per meter cubed to $2.05 per meter cubed, effective April 1st, 2024. On the other hand, we do see some decreases, most notably the fees paid to Mountain View Regional Waste Management Commission, which are decreasing from about $133,000 to $58,000. And that's related mainly to the changes made to the recycling services at the commission. So moving down, you'll see in the slides, I've just highlighted the area of the budget that I'll be pinpointing. Another significant source of revenue is government grants. We receive grants from the federal and provincial government, as well as other local governments. So this line is fairly stable. There is a slight decrease, which I'll talk about. You can see here a breakdown of the grants that we're expecting to get. So at the federal level, we receive the Canada Summer Jobs Grant. And we're actually projecting a lower amount of revenue coming in from that this year. In the past, we did receive 100% of wages, but they've changed that for municipalities to receive only 50% of wages up to minimum wage. So we're expecting a reduction there. And actually, we did see that in 2023 as well. Looking at the MSI, or Municipal Sustainability Initiative grant, that program is coming to an end. So, but it's being replaced with LGFF. We have talked, everybody I'm sure is aware. So originally in 2023, you'll remember we had what they called a one-time bump up in the MSI operating amount. Originally, I did not have that top up budgeted, but we had conversations with some advisors at Municipal Affairs recently, and they said to expect the same amount of the operating portion of grants, so that they believe we will get the same or approximately close to the same payment as we did in 2023. So I do hesitate to confirm this value as it has not been published yet, but that full amount of grant money is in the draft 2024 budget. Looking down at the Mountain View County grants, we receive funding for library and shared recreation facilities, and which each year is impacted by CPI. And so we are projecting there will be an increase there of about 3.8% based on the current value of CPI. Another large source of funding is from our sales and user fees, and a lot of those are driven from our recreational facility use. We are able to increase those revenues a little bit this year, which is because we are coming back into our normal usage of those facilities. The revenues have been quite good. And so we are projecting a 3.4% increase to that revenue line. The other largest source of revenue is from our franchise fee revenue. And this is a source of revenue where council reviews it each year. And you have back in early October, we looked at the franchise fee rates and council decided to have them remain the same. You do see a $10,000 reduction on this revenue line, and that's just due to our estimate in 2023, I think, was a little strong based on what we are seeing. And, part of it is this winter so far, we have seen lower than expected natural gas consumption. So that plays into how much revenue we receive. There is okay. So the remaining line items are less significant. However, we have prepared a little bit less conservative estimates on those lines, like permit fees and fines, even penalties. We're seeing slight increases there in those revenue lines. But I will draw your attention to the transfers from reserves, because all reserve transfers are required to be approved by council, either through an independent motion or during the budget process. So it's important that we talk about them so you understand. And this year, we're looking at a $30,000 transfer from the Community Grant Program Reserve, contingent on the final year-end surplus from 2023. That there is a policy there that requires we look at the surplus to determine that amount each year. And then the other amount is $25,000 from the Solid Waste Reserve. And because this reserve remains in a strong position, Council in the past has supported offsetting solid waste fees with transfers from that reserve. I will pause it right there because just as a break in our presentation to see if there's any questions so far. Councillor McCoy?
I know your bottom line, the one that's government grant revenues, the bottom line of minus 0.2% is correct, but you've got a minus 100% beside MSI funding because it's gone, but you don't have a percentage beside the local government fiscal agreement. Shouldn't it offset from zero?
Well, it does, except that I'm dividing by 0, so it didn't like that formula.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but essentially, I mean, it's 100%. It's not 100% more because of math, but yes, they do offset each other.
Thank you.
Councillor Engel?
The revenue fines,
Mm-hmm.
we have a revenue line for that.
Yes.
What is that derived from? Oh, sorry. Under fines in revenue, what are the fines for? Is that for traffic violation?
Yes. Oh, well, some of it. So that could be bylaw fines locally, but it is also, we get a portion of the RCMP's tickets that come from our community. And so you'll see the fine revenue line in the RCMP budget, in the municipal enforcement budget, just those two. But it's provincial fines and some bylaw fines.
Thank you.
Mayor Hunter?
I have a couple of questions. Under the revenues, the transfers from reserves,
Mm-hmm.
why is that down to 55,000?
So,
Go ahead. No, finish.
last year we had several more things covered from reserves. If you remember, we actually had the $30,000 grant program reserve transfer. We had, I believe it was $50,000 from the solid waste reserve. And we had $40,000 from the general reserve to offset the cost of finishing the MDP. And we had $75,000 from the reserve that changed names. It was yeah. It was the contingents. It changed to special projects and contingency reserve. And just to offset the bottom line at the very end of our budget discussion. So that $75,000 not in the budget, the $40,000 for the MDP is not in the budget. It's just those two items.
So what are the two again? Sorry.
It's $30,000 for the community grant program, $25,000 from solid waste revenue or reserves to offset
Okay.
fees.
And I thought the municipal intern program was a 2-year funded program.
It is. So I need to look at that.
Okay.
There might be some revenue there that I missed when I did this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you?
I noticed that when I was
I'm
planning.
positive it's a 2-year program because that's what.
It is a 2-year program.
The government helps out with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want just these motions at the end? Just,
Yeah.
so that's what we've done in the past. So
I would appreciate it.
Yeah, but just so
No, that would be appreciated, yes. Are there any other questions on the revenues? Councillor Baswick?
Just an observation, Amanda, is it possible for the audience, a lot of the acronyms, they would know, and we might know, but they might not. It would be helpful to use the full terms.
Mm-hmm.
People watching would know what MSI is, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'll
Good line.
I'll try to do that better. Any other questions?
I just want to repeat, because I missed that, the municipal tax levy required, just a breakdown of residential and non-residential.
Sure. So
In there,
of the
of the new assessment.
of the new assessment, I actually didn't say that.
You did say that somewhere.
Okay, so of the new taxable assessment, you mean?
I think-
The 36 million?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I did say that, sorry. I'm confusing myself. So, so 33.5 million is related to residential properties. And, what's the math on that, Phil? 2.5 million. Okay. So I will move on to expenses.
What do I do? I just have one.
Counselor Windsor?
Thank you, Amanda. I want to go back to the taxable assessment.
Yeah.
And you indicated 33.5 million for residential and 2.5 million for non-residential, and yet the 2004 estimate is 710 million. It doesn't make sense.
Oh, that was just the variance.
Okay, so,
I was just explaining the increase.
okay.
So if you want a breakdown of the 710, I will have to bring that back for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
a motion on that?
Sure.
Looks like that's it.
Okay. Okay, so expenses. Salaries, wages, and benefits is the single highest expense of the town, which is as expected. We are a service-centric organization, and our people provide services to our residents. This line item has many inputs that both increase and decrease its costs. In this version of the budget, you're seeing a 1% increase. So there are no new positions budgeted for, and COLA has not been allocated into the budget. There are increased costs for pension, CPP, EI, and WCB due to changes at the various governing bodies, and those are mandatory costs of employment. On the next slide, you see this is just the 5-year comparative overview of our salaries and wages, or salaries and benefits. And so this is it's difficult to, salaries and benefits is unpredictable. And almost always municipalities come in under budget on this line item. And that's because we're dealing with human behavior, which is unpredictable. So we do budget for all of the full-time equivalents, the FTEs, to be completely filled throughout the year. But that doesn't always occur. As you know, people may leave partway through the year, leaving vacancies that are unplanned for. So we've just 83% of that line is on base salaries and wages. As I mentioned, 0% currently is COLA that has not been allocated in the baseline budget that you're viewing. 5% is benefits, 6% pension, 5% is CPP and EI, and 1% WCB. Another, as professional services, and include fees paid for our annual audit, as well as our assessment services, some planning, legal, engineering, and building inspection services. So this line has decreased, and mostly related to the planning line, which in 2023 we had included $40,000 to complete the MDP. And so that has been removed from the budget in 2024. But we did increase that line by $7,000 to account for the estimated usage by the planning department. And then looking at like the legal and engineering lines, we have just tweaked our estimates there of what we're going to be using for the year, and those have both come down. And then the building inspector costs are expected to go up a little bit, and that's based on just looking at the planning or development, building and plumbing, electrical permits that we expect to see next year. We, can you just go back a slide again? Thanks. So we also have a line called contracted services, which covers a myriad of different services. This includes things like hiring a contractor to prepare or to hang Christmas lighting and garland hanging, HVAC and plumbing inspection services for our buildings, and it also ranges to large contracts like our waste collection services, which are handled currently by E360. We are seeing an increase here of about $66,000, and again, there's multiple inputs going into these budget lines, but of that, some significant items would be related to the waste collection contract, about $9,000 to cover inflation and fuel surcharges that are part of that contract each year. We are seeing some increases to general services from within our water department, and that's typically paid to contractors to fix water lines. So we're just increasing that to have the ability to target those breaks if they do occur. There are other increases to general services within our recreation department and planning department. Recreation department is bringing in contractors to look at and to assist different functions of our recreation facility. And the planning department would relate to surveyor costs, which they often need to have when looking at different development items. There's also a more minor item, an increase to the CP Rail contract of $3,000. That item does go up each year based on what CP Rail charges for that. Moving on, contracted municipal policing is a line item that we've seen over the past few years. And well, actually it'll almost be, this will be the fifth year of that contract. So in 2020, we had 9 months of that contract. We started paying $393,905 for the 4 members. But again, that was only 3 quarters of the year. And since then, looking to 2024, we're projecting $697,500, again, for those 4 members. And so on this line, council determines the number of members, the number of officers for the community, and the costs are set out by the RCMP. Moving down the list of expenses, we also see repairs and maintenance has had a decrease. So on this slide, you can see a snippet of R&M, repairs and maintenance costs. The change results mostly from a bit of a budget correction, where if the town staff are completing the work, we've moved it, and they're just purchasing items to do the work, we've moved those to general supplies. You can see that general supplies went up a bit. And we keep this line item specifically for external contractors coming to do repairs or maintenance. Moving on to utilities and insurance expenses. So these two lines typically do see sharp increases year over year. We have an estimate from the insurance provider that there will be about a 7% increase based off of last year's actuals. But we don't receive that actual invoice till the end of January. So there is a little bit of uncertainty to that budget line. The previous year, it was much higher than that, the increase. So insurance. So I am hoping that the 7% is adequate. The utilities line, we're a huge user, a large cost to operate our facilities and our street lights. And for natural gas and electricity, I am budgeting a 10% increase year over year. Looking at the projected year-end balance for 2023 is what I base that off of. And the utilities line also includes water and wastewater and garbage costs. So those I've budgeted for a lower inflationary figure of about 3 to 5% depending on the service. And there you can see some graphs to help you visualize that. Okay, so our debt service, both the interest on long-term debt and the principal payment on long-term debt, we are seeing in total the same amount as previous. On this page, you can see this is actually a 5-year listing of our debt outstanding. So you can see that in 2025, the loan on the RCMP building will be completed. This is this is at the end of the year. So starting in 2026, there will be no more payments on that. The Public Works building loan would expire at the end of 2027. And same with the servicing for some of the industrial neighborhoods, 2027. Shant's servicing, the loans come up in the next couple of years. There's 2 loans there, but they end in 25 and end of 26. And the loan for the sewage lagoon upgrade has a few more years, but I believe, I don't want to say it, it has a few more years past that. Can't remember. So on this next page, they look the same. It's still the same list of loans, but you can see these are the payments that we'll have each year. So and this is principal and interest combined. So in 2024, we will remain at $646,431. In 2025, it'll drop down to $604,428. In 2026, it'll drop substantially to $389,109, and then 2027 down to $322,476. So that will improve our debt, ratio. What is the word? Anyways. Debt load. Okay. And it'll also free up some space to allow us, if we need to take on debt for the reservoir, for example, it'll free up some space for that. So that's good news. Okay, so moving on further down on the expense lines, we have our grants and other payments to organizations. And so again, remember, this is a first look at the budget, and all of these items are up for council consideration. But we've just kept status quo at this point. You'll see the breakdown of the grants and payments to these organizations on the screen. And they're all very similar to last year. The library payment is the same at this point. The museum payment would be the same at this point. FCSS grants going out are the same as the last year. Parkland Regional Library System, we did get news that their budget was approved, so we've put that into this rendition of the budget, and that was a slight increase on their per capita rate. The fees paid to Mountain View Regional Waste Management Commission have reduced, as I've already talked about, from about 133,000 down to 58,000. So on the budget page itself, that's the most significant decrease there. We do have an internal payment from FCSS to Didsbury Neighborhood Place of 21,000. That's gone down a little bit this year. And the 30,000 for the council community grant program as well. And then, so that brings us to the bottom of the expense page, which shows transfers to capital and transfers to reserve. So that transfers to capital line is what we were talking about previously, which items were included in the operating budget. And if you have a keen eye, you'll notice that it doesn't add by 2,000. So I need to fix that. But the $18,000 server replacement is in the transfer to capital, and 14,000 of the 16 hydraulic ram is in there. However, it wouldn't be an effect on the bottom line because the other 2,000's in the small equipment plan, which is in the supplies line, so it needs to come down. I just had a last minute change and that didn't follow it. So it's a net impact of 0, but okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Transfers to reserves. This is where we're putting money each year into various reserve accounts for the future. And I call it a financial commitment to future sustainability of our service providing assets. And here you can see a breakdown of what is going into those various reserve accounts. These are, most of them are very similar to 2023. We have increased the water transfer to reserves as we are looking at a water reservoir, which would take some of those reserves. We're also looking at the wastewater reserve has increased to 125. That's almost a $25,000 increase. That is because to save for future lagoon desludging, so it's not, so we can replenish the reserve for those projects. And then the fire capital equipment reserve, we've adjusted from 90,000 to 95,000, just projecting out those future fire vehicle replacements, which are very expensive. So everything else on that page, though, has stayed the same as last year. And so that actually concludes the expense portion of the presentation. And if there are questions, I will take them now. Oh, sorry, Councillor Baswick.
Thank you. Just a question. When we're talking about the server for $18,000, is there a installation or a service agreement that goes with that beyond the 18,000, or does that include when we buy it, we get it set up for that amount?
Currently, our IT contractor would handle the setup of that within our regular contracted hours.
I'm looking at the professional services. And you're proposing that legal goes down by 6,000, and did you say why?
It's more, it's just an S, looking at what we're using year to year and adjusting that down based on our usage.
And same as engineering?
Yeah,
Is
same.
that relative to the projects that we have?
No, it was just looking at what we're actually using and adjusting for that slightly.
And I know you said that the planning was the 40,000 for the MVP, was, but then so what do we maintain $17,000 for? I know the answer is 7. What do we maintain 10 for?
Yeah, so, well, the 10 and the 7 combined, the 17 is, we do reach out for assistance on various files from a planning organization, and so that's what these would cover.
Because I remember when we hired, the budget accommodated hiring of a planner, some of the conversation was that the planner can do most things, even the MVP was mentioned in that when we hired that. So there's some things they can do, or just because of the workload.
Yeah, and they are doing most things now. We're not really using the contracted service for regular day-to-day things, but it is just the occasional large complex things or so that's hard to say. I mean, this is just a projected estimate. So based on some of the extra special projects, so.
Do we have some of those coming up? Like, that's a serious question. I'm just wondering, like, if it did get put to 10, you'd work within that means, or we'd have to accommodate if there was something come up out of the blue. But we probably plan most of those things, right, for the year?
Yeah, and I know we had a little more this past year than we thought we would, just because the transition period and the startup kind of wasn't quite as, there was a little bit more needed, especially because there were some complex files that were handed off by the contractor that while our new planning staff was being brought up to speed, and so that was a little bit more than we thought it would be. But yeah, this could be brought back down to 10. That's not like a hard number.
Yeah, they're all proposed right now, yeah.
So it's kind of an unknown thing, so.
Does anybody else? Go ahead. I'll take my time.
It's typical to be recognized, but whatever. Okay, so.
Oh, sorry.
Comment. First to start off with, and this is with regard to the policing and the number of officers we have assigned to the town of Disbury. And while council does decide that it is the number 4, it's because we're told by K Division that it's going to be 4. Just clarification on that. So,
Okay.
on the MDP, it's taken out of our professional services. Our MDP isn't complete yet. Does that mean that it's going to be completed entirely internally now? Or are we still needing some professional services to complete that?
My understanding is that council made a motion to actually add some money to that to finish the housing plan as well. And that, so those items, they still exist until they're completed, but we're not budgeting for them again because the money in the reserve is sitting there to complete the project. So I'm not sure what the exact value is on that project, but let's say it was at 35,000 today. We'd still have 5,000 in the reserve until the project's done to pay for the remainder of the project.
And I just need, I was making a list when you were talking about contracted services on the 2024 consolidated operating budget. And you were just listing some of the items that created the increase that we're not normally, can you just, I've caught, can you just list a few more of those, or a few of those that you had listed? So I
Sorry,
could just capture the gist of that.
just to go through them again.
Yeah, I think you don't do all of them.
Sure. So the largest is probably in the water department, and there has been about $30,000 additional in the contracted services, and they typically use that to complete water line repairs.
Okay, so the contract, so the general services are really in the contract?
They are,
Is that
yeah.
what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so I can understand that.
Okay.
And then when you talk about transfer to reserves, we used to, and I think we still have a motion on file, but maybe that needs to be addressed at some point, because we were transferring a certain amount of money into RCMP reserve. And that was based on a 2018 loan or debenture that was paid. And so that's not mentioned here, the RCMP reserve. And we're not doing that transfer anymore from operating. We haven't rescinded that motion. It doesn't mean we should, I mean, it might mean we should, right?
Yeah, I don't recall the motion, so I'll have to look that up. But in the budget, there isn't there is not an amount to
Not transferring in there anymore.
not into the operating side, no.
Well, yeah, but it was the RCMP reserve, I think you know what I'm talking about.
To offset the costs of municipal policing,
Annually, yeah,
right.
that, I don't know where to address that, but I think we probably should at some point, because that was an ongoing transfer, and then we got into heavy budgets and whatever, and then we took the recommendation not to do that.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the council, that maybe we should look at that and see how to manage it and get the expectation off, because it's the government that's creating all these things. Why would we save money? Anybody else? Okay.
Councillor Windsor, was that a hand? No? Oh, okay.
Me too.
You're, okay, that's it. Okay, so if there are no more questions on the operating budget, we will move on.
I do want to bring that as a motion of some sort, deal with it as a budgetary item and then deal with that, whatever was being done with it at the time. I think it's important.
Okay.
So just so you know, there'll be a motion.
Yeah.
Word it so that it makes sense.
Okay, so I will turn the floor back to the mayor at this point. I believe we have item 5B to address.
I think everybody read this. It was handed to you. And it's just the agreement so that we can get paid for our police services for our members according to the grant. And I just thought we should have a motion because signing legal documents, and I'd like council to endorse that. And even we're in the agreement, but I think it's important to know when they come up for re-signing, and we'll do it with the end of the motions after in the operating budget. But yeah, we had a resolution there the other night, but just that because it has to be in tomorrow. So even I can sign it tonight and give it to Luana and Lana and whoever is going to submit it. And it's like 242,144 based on their formula. Yeah.
I have a question regarding that. On government grants and revenue, we were currently projecting for 240, and then this document we got 242. Are we going to see the slide to match up with the letter?
Yeah, Amanda probably. Go ahead, Amanda. Sorry.
Yeah, I will address that now. So that was always supposed to be a calculation base. So when I budgeted, I did it based on the calculation, which is a little bit lower now that our population had gone down. But the agreement is still the original amount. So if that's what the agreement is saying, we can definitely put that back into the budget.
Probably get a copy.
Yeah. Okay, yes.
And go ahead.
The agreement says up to that amount, though, so it doesn't commit us to pay that. But I suppose the budget should reflect the highest amount. 2.1 in the letter.
Yeah, once it's signed and submitted, I'm sure Amanda stays in touch and sorts all that out. And yeah, so we'll have the motion when we come up. So you're done the operating budget items, Amanda, and then we could make these motions that are relative to it, or do you want them all at the end of the session tonight? Just all at the end, I guess, is best, because we'll have. Yeah. Okay. That's another reason that federal government should have counted closer. He just reminded me that yes, that loss of population loses us revenue with our policing.
Oh, yes. But it doesn't. They're giving us. Okay, so section 4 of the presentation is we're calling service level enhancements, and this is where we will be presenting various service level enhancements to council for your consideration. These items are not included in the budgeted numbers that you have seen so far. So each of you do have a chart that was printed and provided, but these are also individually on pages in your slide document. So however you wish to follow along, it should be the same information, and various items will be addressed by various members of the senior team. And so we'll just be kind of bouncing between us to describe them. And I think that we will do questions after each item. Does that sound okay, Ethan? Yeah. Okay. So Ethan, do you want to take the floor?
Sure, I'll speak to some of these. So this first one is just, this has been the high school scholarship, which every year you set aside $1,500 for high school scholarship amount. It's been that for a number of years, and so just some consideration whether or not you want to increase that to $2,000. Thanks. Oh, any questions on that? And we're just, obviously not going to make decisions tonight, so we'll just go through these and answer any questions, and these will be in the ongoing discussions and engagement about the budget. Any questions about this one? All good?
I can speak to this one. So annually on Canada Day, our fire department sets off a fireworks display for the community and visitors. And for forever, it's been a $5,000 allocation towards fireworks, but we're finding over the years that what $5,000 used to buy you sure isn't what it buys now. So we're asking for council to consider an increase of $2,500 to the fireworks budget so that we can elevate our display again and kind of address the inflation that we've experienced over the years. You have any questions? Thank you.
And this is something that we've kicked around as an idea, as a way to, as we go throughout the year, council sometimes has initiatives come before them that they want to fund or invest in, and so we thought it would be helpful if council had kind of a contingency line, a fund to use for whether it's investing in specific events or initiatives that are of interest to council due to the unique way that it serves the community. And so all of which could be captured by a contingency fund that's controlled by motion of council. And so we're recommending, as council maybe consider $20,000 for that. Any questions?
There is Ethan.
Oh, sorry, Joseph.
No worries. I'm just curious, there is no contingency right now, right?
No. Currently, when things like this have come up, it's been funded from the unused funds in the council budget, because council doesn't always use all their funds, and so luckily that's helped to cover some of these unplanned things. We just thought going forward it would maybe help if we had a specific fund that you could pull from for those things.
Thank you.
And this is just more of an FYI, but due to the recently approved new policy for MPC member pay, this is just that this will be added to the budget, this $3,000, which we estimate is what we'll need to fund that policy. Any questions about that?
So this is a request for $5,000 for the Communities in Bloom program that we're a part of. We've been part of it for the last 2 years and have been quite successful with our provincial judging. And we do have an active committee that would really like to get their hands dirty. And so these funds would be used for projects that would be driven by the Communities in Bloom committee with the guidance of the town of Didsbury. And so this is over and above what our parks normally does as part of their operations. It's over and above the flower baskets and barrels and displays that you see around town. So this would be things like the development of a community garden or additional planting beds in town or things like that. So over and above what we normally are doing, that the community and the committee would drive versus the town. Have any questions?
Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead, Bill. Councilor Windsor.
This is not necessarily completely budgetly related, but we were going to have a presentation from the Communities in Bloom Committee.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still upcoming?
Yeah, it is upcoming. Yeah.
How much do we contribute now?
So right now, there's, we have to pay to be part of the program, and then, which is a couple $100, and then we do have to pay accommodations for the judges, but we only paid for one judge this year because one came from Red Deer, so she didn't really require it. So I would say the investment in 2023 is maybe between $500 and $700, and that's just to be more part of the program costs, whereas this money could help cover that as well. But I think the value in this is that it's a community-led, project-based kind of fund that could really help enhance the direction that we're trying to go with the program.
So what's our current beautification budget number that we,
I think it was...
is there a number there somewhere that?
Yeah, I think it was maybe $12,000, $10,000 or $12,000 in the parks budget, and the bulk of that goes to pay for the baskets and the barrels that you see downtown. Like, that's a substantial cost annually.
Give or take 12,000.
Well,
But that's not for the beautification, it's the beautification.
No. So any of the projects that they've done in 2023, so they did some plantings at the skate park, as well as some seasonal barrels downtown for the fall. I use that funding to help support those things for them, but they'd like to do some bigger things, and I think to be able to do bigger things, that beautification budget just can't support it.
Just, like, I like this, but I wonder, and you might not be able to answer this, but do communities in Bloom often get sponsors from the community and they get businesses involved, and that can happen as well? But maybe this is an incentive that if we provided this, then maybe they double that somehow by seeking out donors, or make it twice as good?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Like, you look at really established communities like Athabasca that are like winning all the time in the Communities in Bloom program, and you know, they had to start somewhere too, and it was probably similar to this kind of budget. But as the interest grows and it becomes a tourism draw for communities, you know, that visitors want to come and see all of these displays, so that's where the sponsorship becomes a little bit easier, because people can really see what you've already accomplished with funding.
Thank you. That's it.
Kelsey.
Next? Who's next? Or else we're all guessing.
This is mine. Okay. So, I think as council and the community can see, we've been real busy over the last week and a half decorating the community for the holidays. And that was in thanks to a budget of $12,500 that council granted in 2023 to enhance our community Christmas display. And so we're asking council to consider that amount again for next year, so that we can continue to make this time of year extra special through lights and other types of displays. Councillor McCoy?
Is there a capacity within the Public Works Department to do, like, once these professionals do their plan or whatever, is there capacity that it could come in-house? No? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Nicole. It seems to me that we had a problem with the lights on the light standards on 20th Avenue, and it had to do, if I understand correctly, it had to do with ground fault interrupter breakers or plugins. And has that issue been resolved, and is this $12,500 going to be used to replace those lights on those standards?
Thank you for the question. So, yeah, no, the ground fault protection concern from Fortis hasn't been resolved. It's not really a, yeah, I guess I'll start with that. there's no real solution to that ground fault protection that's viable for us to do as operations. And I don't recall the second question.
If the 12,500 was to replace those lights on those light standards.
Oh, no, not specifically, although
No,
lights.
no, those lights that are on there now are provided by the company, and if we use this company we're not in a contract with them, but if we use them for 3 years to do the same type of a program, at the end of the 3 years, all of the lights are ours to keep. That's what the company that you see doing the display now. If council were to choose not to, we would have to look at purchasing lights differently, I guess, next year, if the enhanced funding wasn't there.
Maybe I'm not asking my question properly. So the lights, I believe, on the light standards on 20th Avenue were taken down because we didn't have ground fault protection on them. And I'm wondering if they're going to be replaced or if they're down for good. If this 12,500 was to direct to the replacement of those.
They're on there now, so they have been replaced. They are lit now. If you've driven down 20th Ave, you'll see that they're in place.
It's the same.
So this, we're maintaining what we approved for 2023, or this is it? This is just approving it again?
This is the same request for 2024.
Okay, so this company won't come back unless and I've talked to Sarah about this just because we talked about the lights and
Yeah.
But should we not enter into a contract? And is there a timeline that we have to, or do we just have to reaffirm this every year? Because really, are we going to light it up like this and look so nice and then next year not do it?
No.
You know what I mean? And so if we're reaffirming this, same money as 2023, maybe council should have been clear that would have been a repeat thing to have in the budget, but we could do that this year.
Yeah.
And then it just, realistically, it's not making sense that we wouldn't do this because you're not going to take it back. And you're not going to ask Public Works. They're not light hangers or decorators. If they wanted to be decorators, I think they'd go be a decorator somewhere. But they did a nice job last year.
Yeah, to answer your question, Mary, so this company is aware that we're in the budget process right now, and they understand kind of what the timeline looks like, that it would be kind of a spring decision, early spring decision, and they're happy to wait for that. There's no contract required. If we say we're in, then all of what you see now will return again next year.
Or 3 years old.
Yeah.
Add up in 3 years.
And then after the 3 years, once any of the display that you see now we're the owners of at that point in time, if council were to continue, then it just gets better that fourth year. Oh, Councillor McQueen?
I'm just curious, so this is just to do kind of similar to what was done last year, or is this going to include some enhancements for 2024? Or last year, this year, I mean, right?
This year is an enhancement above 2022,
Mm-hmm.
and 2024, I think we can, so I believe, so Sarah's been dealing with this a little bit more, but I'm pretty sure. So in the second year that we bring this company back, it costs less. So it wouldn't be the 12,000. So if council were to approve a 12.5 budget in 24, and say what we have today only costs 10, that's 2,500 more that we can invest to do a little more extra next year, and then in year 3 it would be the same, and then if we still love it in year 4, we own everything at that point in time, and then you can do even more in year 4.
I think that's great. I was just ensuring that it wasn't all going into labor, like that there might be some additional lights or...
Yeah, there definitely in year 2 is the possibility of having an addition based on what I've seen in the agreement. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
what you see too, like they've enhanced the train station a bit, and they're doing the hedges there, and everybody's probably seen downtown. If not, drive downtown tonight when you go home, because it's red and that off-white, that's the heritage classic style, and it looks wonderful. And so is the train station, and yeah, well done. And
Just, if I could, just to clarify one thing. So if you have been downtown today, you'll see that the Christmas banners have gone up on the light standards as well. Those were not purchased as part of this funding. We used a roads beautification budget to purchase those for this year. That's the same funding that pays for our banners. So it was nice to have that there to be able to finish off everything else. So thank you.
Nicole.
wonderful. That's good news. I didn't see the truck out with the lift and anything, so it was. Okay, what's next? Well, we know what's next, it's on our list, but.
So this is the GIS software to greatly enhance our capabilities in multiple ways, asset management, planning, bringing us a lot of capability. We would put it out to market, so these are just approximate. A startup cost and ongoing, it would potentially be lower than that based on the competition that's out there for this. But there's a myriad of ways that a GIS software system would enhance the town's operations to better serve the residents. Any questions?
I don't see any hands. Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
So given the asset management program that we have now adopted, it would be very difficult to affect that if we don't have this GIS. Would that not be correct?
Yes, that's correct. Anything to add, Kelsey? Yeah, this is a key to asset management, but also even planning. What this allows the planners and the developers and even the public, when ultimately you can get to a point where you can set up a public-facing portion of it where the public can go on and click on their own property on it, access all their property info, get all kinds of things themselves without having to come in and make a request through the front. So there's a whole bunch of things that this will help us to be able to do.
Would there be a cost for the average citizen to access this information?
No, once we can get it all up and running and the way that you can ultimately get it to function to help the residents access that information, no, it's simply a go online, click on the system and click on your property. So no, it's not something that requires that.
And the next question is probably there already, but what prevents me from checking out Councillor Moore's property?
That's a very good question. So the way this type of thing gets set up is it's only the information that's publicly available. Technically, for instance, the assessment information on a particular property is publicly available information. So it wouldn't have any of her personal information. It would just have the information related to the property that's public.
So I wouldn't find out anything about her.
That'd be good stuff.
Okay.
You had a big plan happening about checking out everybody's stuff, huh? Darn it.
Okay. So this next item is to add a enhanced member with the RCMP department. It would be a community liaison member, and the approximate cost for 1 year is $132,000. Any questions, Councillor Engel?
So I guess my first question would be the 132,000, is that for a full 12 months?
Yes.
And would it, I guess, receive another 6% increase? That's putting our policing costs at $830,000. Okay, that's my only question.
Okay.
And this was what Staff Sergeant Brown spoke to just a couple weeks ago.
And if they are, why cannot they use current members, allot them an hour a month each in rotation so they can go in and represent themselves, which would save us an awful lot of money. I don't think that's necessary to have this particular position, but that's me.
A response?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was not at the session a couple weeks ago, so it's difficult for me to provide exactly what this member will do.
And I think it's fair though that council had a presentation, so maybe we can take that offline with Councillor Bass, we can update. Because we're not making a decision tonight, so maybe I can update, or somebody can update on what the presentation was. Yeah, absolutely, but if you need more information,
I don't need any more observation. I should make my decision.
yeah, that's fine, good.
Councillor McCoy?
I listened to it when they did the presentation, and I thought it was a good program. And it's not just about the schools. It's about presence in the community and teaching people how to be better citizens, I guess. And it wasn't just kids that we were dealing with, but I guess my point is that even if they were only dealing with children, why wouldn't we go after Mountain View County for part of the funding? Because half the kids or more are from Mountain View County.
Yeah.
If we decided to do it.
Yeah, that would be something we would need to look into. To this point, I don't believe it's been looked into. Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Linda. I'm wondering if we were to go forward with this, does the MPSA have to be rewritten? Does it have to be altered, or?
I do not know the answer to that question. We would have to look into that and bring it back.
Yeah, or that it might be dealt with like an enhanced position, so that's a different part of, it's not in the MPSA, but yeah, that, I think when we come back, when it's presented, maybe that, or when it's decided if that's gonna happen, then we would look. Does that make sense? And even on Councilor McCoy's suggestion, like all those questions could come. There's no sense doing a bunch of work if we've got a big no, and, I mean, I support it, but doesn't mean we have a majority, so. Who would you like to go first?
I saw Councillor Baswick's hand first.
Just as an observation, I remember in a previous vocation, part of our obligation to the community was to do things like go on location for the Red Cross on our own dime, or do a judging contest on our own dime. That was our part of our commitment to the community. And I think the RCMP should be looking at that as well, that they should have some segment of their operation where they can contribute freely of their own time to show that kind of support to any community figuring. Okay, that's the observation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCoy?
I just thought along the lines of funding would be that if this is benefiting the school children that go to our school or homeschool, then I'd also go after Chinook's Edge School Division for some funding.
Okay, we definitely could consider looking into those things. Like the mayor said, if this goes forward, then I believe all those things would be addressed. Councillor Engel?
We might want to know that that funding is actually available before we make a decision to spend this amount of money, hoping that we get some funding.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be comfortable pushing this forward at this cost.
Okay.
I think we're just introducing these things and that'll come down the road, a decision on this position, and then all those hypotheticals will be gathered. But, yeah, I think, but next thing?
Sure. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, it would be a new thing that we'd have a lot of information to gather. So, the next item would be a capacity enhancement with our Protective Services Department, and that would be the addition of a full-time fire chief who would not only be responsible for fire, but also oversee other aspects of the Protective Services Department as well, such as our municipal enforcement team, and be involved in the emergency management for the town as well. And the budget impact there is approximately $63,000 for the first year. Any questions, Councillor Windsor?
So what would it be for subsequent years?
We're looking at approximately $126,000 in year 2. Councillor Baswick?
Thank you, Mandy. Again, would this be a cost-sharing thing with the county?
So this, that would definitely be something that we would entertain, take forward as part of our agreement with the county, with the fire department. It would likely not fully be cost shared because of the position wouldn't be 100% fire. So we wouldn't go 50-50 on it. But we would look at the portion that is related to the fire department and ask for funding related to that.
Okay, so you're just asking for funding relating to his fire department duties?
Correct. Any other questions? Okay. So the last item. So before you is we're looking for you to consider an allocation of COLA or cost of living for staff and council's wages and salaries. And based on using CPI as a target, which was at 3.8% when I looked at it recently. We've just looked at what 3% increase would be, and that would be about $105,000. And again, this is for council's determination. Councillor McCoy?
I would be interested for next time, unless you have it now, to know, I know there's a few budgets in our region that have already been passed, and I would like to know what was done in those communities.
Mm-hmm. We definitely could, I don't know everybody's. We do have kind of a survey that we do with some of the communities in our area, and 3% has been a number used in a few of those places, but it's always a range depending on the community. So we can look into that, but just know that it normally does vary quite a bit from community to community. Any other questions?
Are you gonna make a motion on that, or?
Yeah.
Not right now, but just so that we know what motions are being made.
Oh, Councillor Williams?
I think I would like to see COLA split up, COLA for staff and COLA for council. I'm prepared to make that motion.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to see how much we go to council, how much we go to staff.
How does the provincial government do it?
Every time to resolve provincial
At the same
government
rate?
decisions.
Pardon me?
I don't make provincial government decisions.
No, but what they do right across the board, all in. They don't divide up,
It's gonna be a motion though, so you can vote on that when it comes up.
They do.
Yeah.
My department.
Yeah, we'll have a vote. If you wanted- Gotta start lobbying right now for support.
This is for info.
So you're gonna,
This is, you can make
this
this
is for
decision.
information.
Just for info.
All the motions to bring back information, so. Is there anything else, just to, wrap up? Any other questions that haven't been answered? I just want to go back to the capital, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
And where's that sheet, the way everything's broke out for payment, like grants and.
Yeah.
Because when we look at that chart, I guess for council to be aware, and, we don't even know where we're at with the LGFF, and we're anticipating 540, about, or 560, whatever it was we got this year.
Yes, 540.
Yeah, and just for everybody, when we start looking at this, what we're at with year-end balance right now and all the projects we have on the books, and that's why we made that motion on Tuesday night as well, because funding levels have to increase, but our CCDF is down under 300,000 at the end of 2023, based on these proposals, and our LGFF, our MSI currently is at 1 million, and we have $30 million of projects from 23 to 28. And that's just infrastructure, that's not other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's roads. So I just want to point that out to council before we find out about the next steps, that when we come back with this, these are serious things that our funding is, and they're great. We've done a lot of great projects, but we worry that if our funding does get to low levels from the government, that our projects are going to stop or really decrease from what we see today, and they're all great projects. That's all I have to say. And you want to do next steps, and
Yes, I do. So, if there's no other questions, that brings us to agenda item number 5, which is the shortest section. So, 7. It was 5 on my agenda.
Let's start the whole meeting over again.
Shoot, it says 5 up there. Okay, so next steps and closing remarks. So, as you know, I've said it a few times, that you were presented with a baseline budget, and then you were presented with several opportunities to impact that budget based on your deliberations and decisions going forward. And those relate to both the capital budget and the service level enhancements that you saw just moments ago. And so looking forward at how things will go with the budget process, is at the December 12th, 2023 RCM, regular council meeting. We will bring to you an interim operating budget representing one half of last year's or 2023's expenses and to look to council to adopt, and that interim budget will be in place just so we can continue to operate until the final budget is adopted. The proposed operating budget that you saw tonight and the service level enhancements will be brought forward that night to council to begin deliberations. So you may have further questions, or you may start to make motions on adding or changing the budget as you saw tonight. And the capital budget will also be brought forward to council for deliberation. And that again is if you have further questions about the projects, if you've gone home and taken these next 10 or so days and thought of more questions, you can ask them then, or you may want to make motions that evening as well. And then into the new year, January and beyond, council will continue to deliberate, and we will prepare the 2023 year-end budgetary surplus, which you will consider when having those deliberations. And eventually the budget will be adopted, and then after that point, probably in late April, early May, the tax rate bylaw will come forward for approval.
Maybe we should mention too, Amanda, that we're gonna have that presentation evening.
Oh, right, yeah.
Library and museum.
Right, so.
Yeah, because I think everybody, we just went through the, what was it called? Service level enhancements. So we have a few more to consider because those groups will be presenting.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the library and the museum, but I didn't memorize that. I have so much in my mind that.
Yeah. Right, so in January, actually, Nicole, do you want to speak to that?
So it was the library, museum, the 5-0 club, and the curling club were the four that you had identified. And so at the December 12th meeting, I'll be bringing an RFD forward for you to set a date, some date options. So, and then really figure out how you want to approach these meetings for that decision then for January.
Good.
Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Amanda. Why are we doing a temporary, an interim operating budget based on a half year of expenses? Why not a full year expenses?
Well, we could do either. I believe the past 2 years, council felt most comfortable with the half year of expenses, and so it signifies that that is only temporary. So I was just kind of continuing with what we've done for the past couple of years. Yeah.
More unique that way.
More unique.
It's symbolic.
It's very unique.
It's symbolic because it's a clear representation that it's an interim budget. It's not meant to be taken as a budget. So, and sometimes in the past when you do a full year budget as an interim budget, there's misunderstanding and people think that that's the budget. And so there are municipalities like us that adopt an interim budget of half the year so that it's clear that it's not meant to be a full budget.
Oh, Councillor McCoy.
I'm just looking on the consolidated operating budget under expenses. I'm having trouble finding the library and the museum on there.
So are you looking at the object by object?
No, I'm looking at the consolidated.
The department?
Consolidated operating budget.
Mm-hmm.
So page 33.
And that's by department, it says at the top left. Oh yeah, costing center. So, so they would be on the bottom, near the bottom of the page under,
Oh, I see it.
what do I call them?
Yeah, external service.
External service organizations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, are there any other questions? No.
No, so we can start with some motions.
Sure.
What? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I move that council authorize the signing of the policing support grant funding agreement for 2023-2024 in the amount of up to $242,144.
Okay, I'll call the vote.
Should it not say signed by Mayor Hunter? And on behalf of council?
Sure, yep,
Okay, we could add that
okay.
in case somebody else wants to sign it.
My name.
Actually, Mayor Hunter and Deputy Mayor Engel both need to.
You can always just get the ones.
Isn't that just one? I thought they both had to. Okay,
It's
all
on the back.
right then.
All right, I'm gonna call the vote. All in favor? Okay. And Councillor Williams, you had a motion?
Yes, to bring back COLA split up council and staff.
What you're wanting is just to divide them out, so
Yeah,
that you
just
vote
divide.
separately on council and separately on admin or staff. Okay, thanks.
At the time being, since we're not.
Tonight? Okay.
Just for tonight, since this is not a final budget.
Right. You're gonna make all budgets in the future. I don't. But, okay, we'll vote on that. How would you like it worded? Did you word that, Luana?
I just said, moved by Councillor Williams to bring back a council and staff split COLA.
All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, it was just for information, but I guess we should have clarified that. It's not in stone. It's very, anyway, Councillor McCoy has a motion too.
That administration return with the COLA rate that other communities in our region have received, those who have completed their budget. For information.
Yeah, let's just make sure he knows these are for information. We're not set in stone, so just review that, Luana. We'll just have them read back just because we don't have anything on paper.
Moved by Councillor McCoy that administration bring back examples of COLA from other communities.
All right, call the vote on that. All in favor as information? Opposed? That's carried. And then I have motions. And I'm gonna make them at budget meetings, so I never do otherwise. I'm gonna start with the, to bring back the breakout of what proposed 2024 capital items, capital projects are not on the current approved multi-year capital plan. So whatever was added that isn't on there, just so we can, just for information. Luana?
Moved by Mayor Hunter to bring back the proposed capital items that were not on the capital plan.
I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And another motion would be to bring back the motion and the allocation Well, the motion would include all that on the RCMP transfer to reserves, and I believe it would have been made in 18 or 19, just so we can handle and manage that reserve and figure out. Because it was to always transfer that 230,000 plus the top up for what we expected next year for the next year for the policing increases, and we were doing that every year. And so bring back that motion for council to review and make recommendation. And I don't have the number of it, but I know we do have that motion from 18 or 19. I'm thinking even, would have been 19 because we're entering the contract in 20. Yes?
Could I ask a question about that? I assumed at the time that because we weren't paying for policing yet, that we were trying to smooth the transition. And so that it wouldn't be a jolt to our taxpayers. And the fact is now that if we're putting it aside, it wouldn't need to be an amount anywhere close to that, because if we're looking at increases, they're only going to be increases that they do like maybe 5% or something like that with the new contract negotiations as time goes by, unless we do decide to add another member or we're forced to. So that was what I thought it was about. Or you're welcome to bring it back, but I'm thinking that we don't really need that anymore. But I didn't think it was ongoing. Anyway, I guess we'll see that when it comes back.
Well, it's an active motion because it hasn't been rescinded, so to bring it back and. No, it was made, yeah.
We'll find
I just explained what happened. I have good memory for those things. So.
Okay, what number is it?
Motion? Well, I could have looked today, but I didn't. I had it memorized a couple of years ago, but my brain is full.
44519.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just say what Mayor Hunter just said.
Right. Put that. Should we put that motion number in the motion then? To bring back motion number for a review and recommendation? Or just bring back the motion? What did you put it in there, Luana?
I put the 441.
So can you say that again now, the motion?
Moved by Mayor Hunter to bring back resolution 4419 for review and information.
44519.
445. That's 19.
Oh, sorry.
I will call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And I'll move that we bring back the information on the intern grant revenue. Call the vote.
I don't know what that means.
Well, it was on, it was a
Intern or intern? No.
intern, because there was a zero and it's a 2-year program from what we all understand.
Yes.
And there should be some revenue there.
Thank you.
Okay. Call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And that's all I wrote down. So that must be it. Okay, Councilor Windsor.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I'll move that we have our administration bring back a breakdown of the $710 million into residential and non-residential tax assessment as information.
And they should all have, yeah. Sure they do. Okay.
Luann will capture that and just read it back.
So moved by Councilor Windsor to bring back the breakdown, did you say it's 750 or 710,000?
Million.
Thank you. I'm going, that's cheap. Residential tax rate as information. Or
Residential and non-residential.
yeah, residential and non-residential.
Perfect.
Okay. Call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. And I would say that would be a wrap. Amanda, do you have anything else to say? Ethan, Nicole, Craig?
Right. Well, thank you.
For the presentation. and for the
It was awesome.
very creative, like beautiful drone pictures and everything. But thank you. It was,
And the drum.
we appreciate. What?
It was missing donuts this year.
Oh, yeah. Amanda's favorite thing. Yeah, so thanks to everybody for the presentation and the work, and I'll have a motion to adjourn and encourage council to get ready for some work.
I would beat John Stewart, motion to adjourn.
That's not fair, John, he always used to do that.
He's busy.
Okay, Councillor Moore, motion to adjourn, all in favor? That's carried.